I wasn't supposed to be home. That's what kept running through my mind as I stood frozen in the doorway of my own bedroom. My phone clutched in my trembling hand. The meeting in Denver had been canceled at the last minute. A blessing, I'd thought, as I drove the 3 hours back home, imagining surprising my wife Sarah with an early return. Maybe we'd go out to dinner, reconnect like we used to before our marriage had started feeling like two strangers sharing a house. The front door had been unlocked, which wasn't unusual. Sarah often forgot to lock it during the day. I'd climbed the stairs quietly, not wanting to startle her, a small smile playing on my lips as I thought about her surprised face when I walked in. That smile died the moment I heard the sounds coming from our bedroom. At first, my brain couldn't process it. Soft laughter. A man's voice I didn't recognize. The unmistakable rhythm of movement on our bed. The bed we'd picked out together 5 years ago when we'd bought this house, full of hope and dreams about our future. My hand reached for the doorknob, and some instinct I can't explain made me pull out my phone first. Maybe it was the lawyer in me, always thinking about evidence, about proof. Maybe it was just shock making me act on autopilot. Whatever it was, I started recording before I pushed that door open. The scene before me is burned into my memory forever. Sarah, my wife of 7 years, tangled in our sheets with Derek. Derek, my former college roommate. The guy who'd been my best man at our wedding. The same Derek who'd been coming over for Sunday dinners. Who'd comforted me last year when my father died. Who'd looked me in the eye 1,000 times and smiled like a friend. They didn't notice me at first. I stood there, phone recording, feeling like I was watching a stranger's life fall apart. This couldn't be my life. This couldn't be my wife. The woman who'd promised to love me forever. Who'd cried happy tears on our wedding day. Then Sarah's eyes met mine. The color drained from her face so quickly I thought she might faint. Derek scrambled backwards, grabbing for his clothes, muttering, "Oh God, oh God, oh God," like a prayer. But I couldn't look away from Sarah. I watched as shock transformed into something else, fear, yes, but also anger. How dare she be angry? I was the one betrayed, the one whose world had just shattered into a million irreparable pieces. "Marcus," she whispered, clutching the sheet to her chest. "Marcus, this isn't—" "I'm recording," I said, my voice eerily calm. I didn't recognize it as my own. "I'm recording everything. For the divorce." That word, divorce, seemed to flip a switch in her. The fear in her eyes turned to panic, wild and desperate. Derek was pulling on his pants, moving toward the door, but Sarah wasn't looking at him anymore. She was looking at me, and something in her expression made my skin prickle with warning. "You can't," she said, her voice rising. "You can't divorce me. You can't leave me. After everything I've sacrificed." "Sacrificed?" The word came out sharp, bitter. "What have you sacrificed, Sarah? What exactly have you given up while you were sleeping with my best friend in our bed?" She flinched like I'd slapped her. Derek had reached the door, trying to slip past me, but I stepped aside. I didn't want to look at him. Didn't want to acknowledge that this betrayal was double-edged, cutting me from two sides at once. "Get out," I told him, still recording. "Get out of my house," he ran. I heard his feet on the stairs, heard the front door slam, and then it was just Sarah and me, the phone between us like a weapon, recording the end of everything we'd built together. "Please," Sarah said, and she was crying now. "Please, Marcus, just stop recording. We can talk about this. We can fix this." But I knew, we both knew, that some things once broken can never be fixed. Sarah's tears were streaming down her face now, leaving dark mascara tracks on her cheeks. I'd seen her cry before, at movies, at funerals, even tears of joy at our wedding. But these tears were different. These were tears of a cornered animal, desperate and dangerous. "Turn off the phone, Marcus." Her voice had changed, taking on an edge I'd never heard before. "Turn it off right now." "No." I kept the camera steady, documenting everything. In my years as a corporate lawyer, I'd learned that evidence was everything. Emotions faded, memories became unreliable, but video footage didn't lie. "I'm going to pack some things and leave. You can stay here tonight, but I want you out by tomorrow. My lawyer will contact you about the divorce proceedings." I was proud of how steady my voice sounded, even as my heart was shattering in my chest. 7 years of marriage gone in an instant. All those promises, all those plans for children and growing old together. Lies. All of it. "You're not going anywhere." Sarah's voice had turned cold now, the tears stopping as suddenly as they'd started. She threw back the sheet and stood completely naked, but there was nothing vulnerable about her posture. She looked like a warrior preparing for battle. You're going to delete that video and we're going to pretend this never happened. That's not how this works, Sarah. I started backing toward our dresser, intending to grab some clothes. You don't get to cheat on me and then dictate terms. You don't get to— I said you're not going anywhere. She lunged past me, moving with surprising speed, and yanked open the nightstand drawer on my side of the bed. My blood ran cold. I kept my Glock 19 in that drawer, unloaded, with the magazine stored separately in my closet safe. I'd bought it 3 years ago after a string of break-ins in our neighborhood, took a safety course, but never imagined I'd actually need it. Sarah's hand emerged from the drawer and my world tilted sideways. She was holding my gun, gripping it with both hands, pointing it directly at my chest. Sarah. My voice cracked now, the lawyer's calm deserting me. Sarah, put the gun down. It's not even loaded. You know I keep the magazine in the safe, do I? Her laugh was high-pitched, hysterical. Do I know that, Marcus? Maybe I found where you hide the key. Maybe I've been planning for something like this. Maybe I'm not the stupid, naive wife you thought I was. Was she bluffing? The rational part of my brain said yes. Sarah didn't know the safe combination, didn't know where I hid the key. But the rational part of my brain was drowning under a wave of primal fear. Loaded or not, I was staring down the barrel of a gun held by a woman who'd just proven she was capable of betraying me in the worst way possible. Why are you doing this? I asked, hating how my voice shook. If you wanted out of our marriage, you could have just told me. We could have ended this like adults. I don't want out of our marriage, she screamed, and her hands were shaking, making the gun waver. I want my life. I want this house, I want our money, I want everything we've built. You think I'm going to let you take that away because of one mistake? One mistake? My fear was mixing with anger now, a dangerous cocktail. How long, Sarah? How long have you been sleeping with Derek? She didn't answer, but something flickered in her eyes. Guilt, shame, and something else. Calculation. It doesn't matter, she said finally. What matters is that you're going to delete that video. You're going to forget what you saw, and we're going to continue our lives like nothing happened. Or what? You'll shoot me? I couldn't believe we were having this conversation. This was Sarah, the woman who cried when she accidentally hit a squirrel with her car. The woman who rescued stray cats and volunteered at the soup kitchen every Thanksgiving. You're not a killer, Sarah. No, she agreed, and her voice dropped to something cold and menacing. But I'm a survivor. And I'm not losing everything because you came home early. You ruined everything, Marcus. You ruined my whole life! The accusation was so absurd, so backwards, that I almost laughed. I ruined her life? By being faithful? By working 60-hour weeks to give her the lifestyle she wanted? By loving her even when our marriage had started to feel like an obligation rather than a joy? But I didn't laugh, because her finger was on the trigger, and loaded or not, I was in danger. Okay, I said, raising my free hand in surrender. My phone was still recording in my other hand, capturing every moment of this nightmare. Okay, Sarah, let's talk about this. Let's just calm down and delete the video. I will. I was lying, but she didn't need to know that. Just put the gun down first, please. You're scaring me. Good. Her smile was terrible to see. Now you know how I felt when I saw you standing there recording me. Recording my private moment. Your private moment. With my best friend. In our bed. But I bit back the words. Time seemed to stretch and distort in that bedroom. What could have only been minutes felt like hours as Sarah and I faced each other across a distance of maybe 10 feet. Her with the gun, me with my phone still recording, though I'd lowered it slightly to appear less threatening. Sarah, listen to me. I spoke slowly, carefully, the way you might speak to someone standing on a ledge. Think about what you're doing. Even if that gun isn't loaded, and we both know it isn't, pointing it at me like this is a crime. It's assault with a deadly weapon. You could go to prison. I'm already going to lose everything. Her voice cracked, oscillating between rage and desperation. Do you think I don't know what divorce means? My father warned me. When you marry a lawyer, he said, make sure you're always the victim, because lawyers know how to win. This bizarre statement threw me. Your father said that. When? They also brought Derek to testify against Sarah in exchange for immunity on any potential conspiracy charges. He described months of Sarah talking about how much easier life would be if I were gone, how she joked about my life insurance policy, how she'd researched accidental deaths and whether insurance companies paid out. I listened to all this from the prosecution's side of the courtroom, feeling sick. Had my wife really been planning to kill me? Or were these just the angry fantasies of an unhappy woman? Words twisted by hindsight and fear. When Sarah took the stand in her own defense, I saw the woman I'd married peek through the mask of the stranger she'd become. "I loved Marcus," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I know you probably don't believe that after seeing that video, after hearing what I said. But I did love him. I still do in a way." "Then why did you have an affair?" her attorney asked gently. "Because I was lonely." Her voice broke. "Because somewhere along the way we stopped being partners and started being roommates. Because Derek paid attention to me, made me feel seen. I'm not saying it was right. It wasn't. It was the worst thing I've ever done. But I was so unhappy and I didn't know how to fix it, and Derek was there." "And the gun?" her attorney pressed. "Why did you pick up the gun?" I panicked. Sarah looked directly at me now, her eyes pleading. "I saw my whole life falling apart. Not just my marriage, everything. I knew Marcus would leave me with nothing. He's a lawyer. He knows how to win. I'd seen him in action, seen him destroy opponents in negotiations. I was terrified that he'd use that same skill to ruin me, so I grabbed the gun without thinking. I just wanted him to stop recording, to give me a chance to explain. I never would have pulled the trigger, never, it wasn't even loaded. But you told Marcus that maybe you'd found the ammunition, that maybe you'd been planning for something like this." "I was bluffing." Sarah's voice rose. "I was trying to scare him into deleting the video. That's all. I wasn't thinking clearly. I'd just been caught in the worst moment of my life and I reacted like a cornered animal. But I would never ever have hurt Marcus. Despite everything, I never wanted to hurt him." The prosecution's cross-examination was brutal. "Mrs. Mitchell, you say you never wanted to hurt your husband. But didn't you hurt him by having an affair?" "Yes, but didn't you hurt him by pointing a loaded-looking gun at his chest?" "The gun wasn't loaded." "But your husband didn't know that, did he? You intentionally made him believe his life was in danger. Isn't that correct?" Yes. And when your husband said he wanted a divorce, you responded by threatening him with a weapon. Would you say that's a proportionate response to a request for divorce?" "No, but I wasn't thinking." "Exactly. You weren't thinking about your husband's safety. You were only thinking about yourself, about not losing your comfortable lifestyle. Isn't that right?" Sarah couldn't answer. She just cried, which probably didn't help her case with the jury. The verdict came back after 6 hours of deliberation. Guilty on all counts. Aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, making criminal threats. The judge set sentencing for 3 weeks later. On sentencing day, Sarah's attorney argued for leniency, probation, community service, mandatory counseling. "My client has no prior criminal history," she said. "She's not a danger to society. She made a terrible mistake in a moment of crisis, but she deserves a chance at redemption." The prosecution asked for the maximum 10 years. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s who'd seen too many domestic violence cases, looked at Sarah for a long moment before speaking. "Mrs. Mitchell, I've watched the video of your encounter with your husband at least a dozen times. I've read the testimony. I've considered all the factors in this case, and I find myself troubled by something you said on the stand. You said you reacted like a cornered animal, but you weren't cornered. You were caught. There's a difference." Sarah's face crumpled. "You had choices," the judge continued. "You could have apologized. You could have let your husband leave. You could have accepted responsibility for your actions. Instead, you escalated the situation with violence. You picked up a weapon and threatened the man who'd trusted you with his life. Intent matters, Mrs. Mitchell. And your intent was clear, to terrify your husband into submission through the threat of deadly force." The judge sentenced Sarah to 7 years in state prison, with the possibility of parole after 5. I watched as Sarah collapsed in her chair sobbing. Part of me, the part that had loved her for 7 years, wanted to feel sorry for her. But mostly I just felt empty. After the sentencing, reporters swarmed me outside the courthouse. I'd become something of a reluctant celebrity, the man who recorded his own domestic violence incident. But I just pushed through them, ignoring their questions, wanting only to go home, except I didn't have a home anymore. I'd sold our house, unable to live in a place with so many terrible memories. I was renting an apartment downtown, starting over at 34 years old. That evening, alone in my new place, I received an email from Sarah. The prison must have allowed her one message before she began serving her sentence. Marcus, it read, I know you probably hate me. I hate myself for what I did to you, to us. You deserved so much better than what I gave you. I destroyed a good man's trust, destroyed a good marriage, and destroyed my own life. All because I was too cowardly to communicate, too selfish to appreciate what I had, and too proud to admit I was unhappy. The gun wasn't loaded, but my intent was still wrong. I wanted to scare you, to control you, to make you bend to my will. That's not love. That's not even a pale imitation of love. I'm going to spend the next 5 to 7 years thinking about the choices I made, about the man I betrayed and the friend I manipulated, about the person I became when I felt cornered. I hope someday you can forgive me, but more than that, I hope you can move on and find real happiness with someone who deserves you, someone who will value your kindness, your patience, your loyalty, someone who won't destroy everything beautiful because they're too damaged to recognize it. I'm sorry, Marcus, for all of it. Sarah, I read the email twice, then deleted it. Some apologies come too late. Some bridges once burned can never be rebuilt. 3 years have passed since that terrible afternoon. Sarah is still in prison. The video that ruined both our lives has mostly faded from public consciousness, replaced by newer scandals, fresher tragedies. I've been in therapy, working through the trauma of that day and the deeper issues in our marriage that I'd ignored. I've learned that I wasn't blameless. I had retreated into my work, had stopped really seeing Sarah, had let our marriage become a comfortable routine rather than a living, growing thing. But I've also learned that my failings as a husband didn't justify what Sarah did, that we're all responsible for our own choices, that love without trust is just an empty word. I still practice law, though I've switched to family law now. I help people navigate divorces, custody battles, domestic violence situations. I use my story, when appropriate, to help others recognize the warning signs of relationship breakdown before it reaches a crisis point. Last month, I started dating again. Her name is Jennifer, and she's a teacher. She's kind, honest, and communicative, everything Sarah wasn't. It's early, and I'm cautious, but there's hope there. A possibility of building something real. Sometimes I wonder about Sarah alone in her cell, living with the consequences of those few terrible moments. Did she really plan to harm me? Or was she just a desperate woman making desperate choices? I'll never know for sure. What I do know is this. Recording that afternoon probably saved my life. Not because Sarah would have shot me, the gun was never loaded, but because it gave me proof, evidence, a clear record of what happened. In the court of public opinion and in the actual court, that video told the truth when words might have failed. I also know that marriages don't die in a single moment. They die slowly from 1,000 small betrayals, 1,000 silent resentments, 1,000 missed opportunities to connect. Sarah and I stopped really talking to each other long before I found her with Derek. We were living parallel lives, not an intertwined one. The gun was just the final, dramatic punctuation mark on a story that had been ending for years. These days, when people recognize me, which happens less and less, they usually ask if I've forgiven Sarah. I tell them I'm working on it. Forgiveness isn't a switch you flip. It's a journey you take, one difficult step at a time. But I've forgiven myself. For working too much, for not seeing the signs, for loving someone who couldn't or wouldn't love me back the same way, for being human and flawed and doing the best I could with what I knew. In the end, that terrible afternoon taught me something valuable. Truth matters. Evidence matters. But most importantly, knowing who you can trust, really trust, matters more than anything else. Sarah lost 10 years of her life, 7 in prison, and the 3 years of our marriage that she wasted on lies and betrayal. I lost 7 years too, and a part of my ability to trust easily. But I gained something as well. Clarity. Self-knowledge. The understanding that I deserve, that we all deserve, love, that doesn't come with conditions, threats or loaded guns. Even when the gun isn't loaded, the intent behind pointing it reveals everything you need to know about a person's heart. Before our wedding, she laughed, that same unstable sound. He didn't trust you. Said you were too smooth, too perfect. Said men like you always have an exit strategy. I thought of my father-in-law, George, who'd seemed to genuinely like me, who'd shaken my hand at the wedding and told me to take care of his little girl. Had that all been an act? Or had Sarah twisted his words, feeding her own paranoia over the years? I never had an exit strategy, I said quietly. I loved you, Sarah. I thought we were building something real. Then why weren't you enough? The question came out as a sob, and for a moment the gun lowered slightly. Why did I look for something else? It was the first honest thing she'd said, and it gave me hope. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe we stopped communicating. Maybe we both got comfortable and forgot to try. But Sarah, we can't fix this with a gun. We can't fix this with threats and fear. I wasn't supposed to fall in love with him. She wasn't really talking to me anymore, her eyes distant. It was supposed to be just physical. Just something to make me feel alive again. But Derek, he listened, he saw me. You were always so busy with work, with your cases, with everything except me. The accusation stung because there was truth in it. I had been working long hours. I had been distracted, stressed, bringing my work problems home. But plenty of spouses dealt with that without betraying their partners. So this is my fault. I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. You cheated because I worked too much? Yes, no. She was crying again, the gun shaking violently in her hands. I don't know. I don't know anything anymore except that I can't lose everything. I can't be the villain in this story. I can't be the woman who destroyed her marriage. But you are that woman, I said softly. You made choices, Sarah. You chose Derek. You chose to lie to me. You chose just now to pick up that gun. These are your choices. Delete the video. She raised the gun again, steadier now, and I saw something in her eyes that truly frightened me. Not just anger or fear, but a kind of resolve. Delete it now, Marcus, or I swear to God. Or what? I was tired of being afraid. You'll pull the trigger on an empty gun? Then what? I'll call the police, you'll go to jail anyway, and you'll have nothing. Is that what you want? Her face crumpled. You don't understand, Derek promised. He said if you were out of the picture, we could be together. We could have everything. The words hit me like a physical blow. Out of the picture? Sarah, what exactly did Derek promise you? She realized what she'd revealed, her eyes widening. Nothing. I didn't mean, did you plan this? My mind was racing now, connecting dots I didn't want to connect. Did you want me to catch you? Were you hoping I'd, have a heart attack? Do something that would give you grounds for divorce? Or something worse? No, Marcus, no, I would never, but I wasn't sure I believed her anymore. I didn't know this woman holding a gun on me. She was a stranger wearing my wife's face. I'm leaving, I said, making my decision. I'm going to walk out that door, Sarah. If you want to shoot me in the back, do it. But that phone is still recording, and it's automatically backing up to the cloud. Even if you destroy it, the video exists. You can't unring this bell. I started moving toward the door, slow and steady, not turning my back on her completely. Every muscle in my body was tensed, waiting for, what? A gunshot, a tackle? But Sarah just stood there, the gun hanging at her side now, tears streaming down her face. I loved you, she whispered as I reached the doorway. I really did love you, Marcus, once. I loved you too, I said. But love isn't enough when there's no trust. No respect, no honesty. I made it to the hallway, then the stairs, moving faster now. I didn't stop running until I was in my car with the doors locked, my phone clutched in my shaking hands. Only then did I realize I was still in my work clothes, had no overnight bag, no toiletries, nothing except my phone, my wallet, and the most devastating video ever recorded. My hands trembled as I checked the recording. It was all there. Every word, every moment. Sarah in bed with Derek, the gun, the threats, the confession about Derek wanting me out of the picture, evidence of adultery and assault with a deadly weapon, all in one horrific home movie. I sat there in my car, parked on the street outside my own house, a house I suddenly realized I might never feel safe in again, and tried to process what had just happened. My wife had pointed a gun at me, my wife who'd walked down the aisle in white promising to love and cherish me, my wife who'd curled up beside me every night for 7 years. Who was she? Had I ever really known her? My phone rang, making me jump. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Marcus, it's Derek. His voice was rushed, panicked. Man, I'm so sorry. I'm so incredibly sorry. I never meant for, where are you? I cut him off, my voice ice, in my car. Look, I know you probably want to kill me right now, but you need to know something. Sarah, she's not stable, man. The last few months she's been different, possessive. She kept talking about how if you were gone we could be together for real. I thought she just meant divorce, but now I'm not sure. Marcus, I think she might actually. She pointed a gun at me, Derek. The words felt unreal coming out of my mouth. After you left, she took my gun out of the nightstand and pointed it at me. Silence on the other end. Then, oh my God, Marcus, call the police. Right now. There's something wrong with her. She's been obsessing about money, about the house, about how you have a big life insurance policy. I thought it was just talk, but I hung up. I didn't want to hear anymore. Couldn't process that my wife might have been planning something far worse than simple infidelity. But Derek was right about one thing. I needed to call the police. The next few hours passed in a blur. Police cars with flashing lights outside my house. Officers taking my statement. Watching the video with grim expressions. Sarah being led out in handcuffs and screaming that I was lying, that I'd manipulated the video, that this was all a setup. The gun wasn't even loaded. She kept yelling as they put her in the patrol car. I never would have hurt him. It was empty. But the officers had already checked. The gun was indeed unloaded. But that didn't matter under California law. The intent to threaten, to instill fear was enough. Assault with a deadly weapon. And with the video evidence, the case was airtight. My phone started buzzing constantly. Texts from friends who'd seen the video. Because of course it had leaked. One of the officers must have shared it. Or maybe it was already backed up to some cloud service that had been hacked. By morning, wife points gun at husband after cheating was trending on social media. I watched, numb, as my private nightmare became public entertainment. Millions of views. Thousands of comments. She's crazy. Lock her up. This is why you don't cheat. The husband seems so calm, he's definitely been through stuff before. Anyone else notice the gun probably isn't loaded? She's bluffing. Doesn't matter, intent is what counts. She's facing serious time, they were right. My lawyer, not me, I couldn't represent myself in this, explained that Sarah was facing up to 10 years for aggravated assault. The video left no doubt about her actions, her threats, her state of mind. The DA is going to push hard on this, he told me over coffee the next day. Domestic violence, weapons charges, making terroristic threats. And with the video going viral, there's public pressure for a tough sentence. 10 years. A decade of Sarah's life and mine. My life was over too, in a different way. My marriage was finished. My best friend had betrayed me. My private trauma had been turned into clickbait. That night, alone in a hotel room, I finally broke down and cried. 3 months later, I sat in a Los Angeles Superior Courtroom watching my wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, face the consequences of that terrible afternoon. She looked different now, thinner, older somehow, wearing a modest navy dress instead of the designer clothes she used to favor. Her lawyer sat beside her, a public defender who looked overwhelmed by the media circus surrounding the case. The prosecution's case was straightforward. They played the video, my video, on screens throughout the courtroom. I watched the jury's faces as they saw Sarah grab the gun, heard her scream, "I'm not losing everything." Saw the fear in their eyes as they imagined themselves in my position, staring down the barrel of a gun held by someone they'd trusted completely. The defense tried to argue diminished capacity, that Sarah had been in an extreme emotional state, that she'd never intended to actually harm me, that the gun wasn't even loaded. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sarah's attorney said during closing arguments, "my client made a terrible mistake. She betrayed her husband's trust, yes. She reacted poorly when caught, yes. But pointing an unloaded gun in a moment of panic is not the same as attempted murder. She's not a violent criminal. She's a woman who made bad choices in a moment of crisis." But the prosecution's response was devastating. "Intent," the DA said, pacing in front of the jury. "That's what this case is about. Did Sarah Mitchell intend to threaten her husband? Did she intend to make him fear for his life? The video shows us the answer. Listen to her words. Maybe I'm not the stupid, naive wife you thought I was. Maybe I've been planning for something like this. Planning. She admits to planning something. And Sarah's heart, when tested, chose fear over love, control over honesty, a loaded lie over an unloaded truth. That's not the kind of love worth saving. So I'm building a new life now, one honest moment at a time. And if that video still exists somewhere in the dark corners of the internet, a permanent record of the worst day of my life, well, maybe it serves as a reminder to everyone who sees it. Love shouldn't make you reach for a weapon. Real love, honest love, doesn't threaten or manipulate or destroy. Real love sets you free. Even if that freedom means walking away from everything you thought you knew. Even if it means starting over at 34, alone but alive, even if the gun was never loaded at all.